Hello, students. I wanted to give you some more information um, for revising your introduction paragraph or your conclusion paragraph. So I wanted to talk about the different styles that are available. So as most of you know, your introduction paragraph should somehow get the audience's attention, make them want to read further, and then you may need to bridge from that attention getter to your thesis statement by giving more information about the topic, which could be background or some other type of information. And then finally, you'll have your thesis statement. So a lot of students usually write a summary declarative type of introduction where they tell readers what the paper will be about and then give their main claim or thesis. These other styles work a little bit differently. You can take the information from your original introduction and try one of these others. And I wanted to go through these and maybe give some examples. So anecdotal or opening with a narrative or story. This is useful if you use the story as an extended example throughout the essay, or maybe even if you just return to that story at the end. So for the essay we're working on now, where you're talking about good writing, you might give a story related to some experiences that you've had with writing. The next style is a shocking or surprising statement. So here you might have information or statistics that you want to give to your readers to get their attention and surprise them and make them read further. You could even do this by using some information from Simon or Bryson or one of the other authors that we've read, or maybe you can find some statistics about good writing that you could use for that. The third one, beginning by identifying a problem. I think this is useful for a piece of writing where you're eventually going to present some sort of a solution or recommendation. So maybe from the standpoint of this essay, maybe the problem is how do we define good writing, and maybe you'll eventually work your way to some sort of a recommendation for how to define that. And so your introductory paragraph might begin by identifying the problem, and then your concluding paragraph might end with your solution or recommendation. Beginning with a quotation or an idea from an authority, you could easily use a quote from one of the authors that we've read to talk about good writing, and then work your way into your thesis statement. Sometimes a background or historical review is helpful. I think if you think about maybe the way that Bryson introduces his essay, he gives us a lot of historical background as he opens, and so that's one thing that you could do as an introduction. The last one, giving implications or consequences, the so what. This might give readers information about why this topic you're talking about is even useful, explain why this paper is meaningful or what they can get out of it. And here I think I would think about those areas where Simon talks about why we should even care about good writing, why it's good for us. That sort of a so what or an implication is something that if you have that kind of information you might want to use as you open. And then the synthesis is similar to a so what, but this type of paragraph demonstrates how all of the different parts or ideas of the paper will fit together. And so here it's similar to summary, but also has some similarities with implications or consequences. So those are the different introduction styles that I have for you to use as you revise your paragraph. And then the different conclusion styles. Here, your conclusion may start with some sort of a summary statement to sum up what the paper's main idea is, and then go into some concluding remarks to finish it off. Here again, I think a lot of students simply know the summary style conclusion. Tell the readers what you said and recap the ideas in different words or maybe almost the same words sometimes. And so here, if you decide to rewrite your conclusion, some of these are similar to what we just looked at on the introduction. So concluding with a narrative or story, you might finish off the story you began with, concluding with a recommendation or solution. This might work well if you started your introduction with a problem. Concluding with a quotation, something like author so-and-so says it best when they tell us this. Concluding with a prediction. This sums up the main idea and then looks to the future to predict what might happen next. And so maybe you predict what's going to happen with how we view good writing in the future. The implications or the so what is similar to what we were just talking about with the conclusion. Moving toward the general. So this works well for an essay that uses an organizational pattern where the paper moves from a specific idea to maybe a more general idea, or where you take some general ideas and move to some sort of a specific point. And the conclusion can follow a pattern that's similar to the way the paper was structured. Synthesis, how do all the parts of the paper and ideas fit together? What do they mean? Summary we've talked about, and then challenging the reader. Here you might ask the reader to take some action or challenge him or her to think about the topic further. So think about these different styles and figure out which paragraph you are most interested in revising. This doesn't mean that you can't revise both of your paragraphs, but for our purposes with this assignment, I just want you to turn in one of them that you've revised, which is labeled, and you tell me which style you had and what style you're going for. Thanks.